there you go. So here's our cool application. It took all of, I don't know, 5 minutes. Let's see if it's working. So go to the arbitrage section, and you can see here, it has the price, it has the bid and the ask, which I didn't even ask it to do that. All right, guys, there has been a lot of hype about this new Manus thing that's come out of China. People are saying it's going to change everything. It's the next DeepSeek R1 moment, and they're just going crazy and hyping it up. But I hate to burst the bubble. It's really not all that. And I think a lot of people from the outside, or people who don't actually build AI tools or build with AI in general, see this kind of stuff and they buy the hype. And I think that happens to get a lot of investors as well. Investors will see something like this and be like, oh, I want to invest, $50 million for 10%. This is going to change the world. It's not, and it's easily replicable. Look at some of these headlines here. They're just going crazy. Well, this guy says it's not the next DeepSeek moment, and they're saying it's not because other people are saying it is. But you'll see that Tennessee Bandit is going viral, and you go on YouTube and you see, he's got his head in his hand and he's talking about how crazy it is. World's first autonomous agent. The most hyped AI ever. It's not AI, guys. It's not an LLM. It's simply a wrapper. I'm going to show you that in this video. I'm going to show you how you can do the same thing that Manus does, all from your local computer using VS Code and a plugin and a basic text file, and you'll get the same result, if not better. And really, that would be the fundamentals and the foundation of how you work with AI. So this might actually help some of you guys. But as you can see here, everybody's talking about it. It's going crazy. It's really just hype, and it's not all that. So let's get started. Let me break this down for you. I use a start prompt like this. This is basically what Manus is doing on the back end. It's how agents work. What they have is called a system message, and that system message is like a prompt wrapper, and it's just a standard prompt that tells the agent or the LLM, what it is or who it is and what it's supposed to do. And in this case, I'm saying I want to build a project, and then I have a space for the project description. That's basically the human input in agent or LangChain terms, where you have your system input, which is the standard default sort of prompt wrapper, and then you have your human input or user input, which is specific to that particular session. So it's whatever project you want to build at that time. That's what you'll fill in. And then I'm saying we're good. And then the rest of the message is a standardized message that just says we're going to develop this product using these strategies and principles: token optimization, creating reference files, planning out the project in phases, creating a checklist, following the checklist, and a start here file. I can go into more details on that stuff later on how that works, but for now, let's get started on the project itself, and let me show you how we can actually do what Manus does without anything special whatsoever. So you can see here, I've copied this prompt into my VS Code directory here, and I've just filled in the project description. I said, I want to build a web app that compares the price of Bitcoin via API between Coinbase and Gemini crypto exchanges. I want the app to work via a UI. The UI should display a matrix comparing the prices of the coins and should show the delta between them. The UI should be very cool and futuristic. I want to get investors from Y Combinator. It should also have a nav bar at the top. The nav bar should be a home page, should have a home page and an arbitrage page. So 2 pages that I'm looking for. I want both pages and the nav bar to be functional. The home page will be used as a landing page that can be for marketing and making this look super cool. And some stuff in there for future potential of the app. So I'm basically telling it I want to use the home page for some marketing stuff and make it look cool. And then I want to have another page for arbitrage, which is showing the delta and the prices and all that kind of stuff. And then I have the rest of my standardized prompt. And all I'm going to do here is go into my Cline plugin. Cline is a plugin that you can get in VS Code. All you have to do is search Cline here, install it, and you'll have Cline in VS Code. This allows you to use whatever LLM you want to write code or edit files or whatever you want it to do. It's basically an AI agent inside VS Code. This is open source. It's free. Like I showed you, you could just go here, search it, plugins, and hit install, and there you go. You've got it for free. Nothing special there. Just like any other VS Code plugin. When you install Cline, all you have to do is pick your API of choice. You have many options. I use OpenRouter because that allows me to switch between LLMs very easily, and the API cost is actually lower than going directly to the APIs. I can also manage all my credits from one place. You want to learn more? Look it up on Google. Send me a message, or maybe I'll make another video later. But this is all pretty basic stuff. Now that you have your Cline stuff set up. Now all you do is you have set up your prompt here, and what we're going to do is we're going to say we are working on. All right, so I'm saying we are working on the demo project, and I created a demo directory here with my project start prompt. That's where it is. So I'm just telling it where I am. We're working on the demo project. So we're working on the demo project. Read the project start prompt file and then complete the project. Don't stop until it's done. I want to have a functional UI and app delivered at the end of this task. Once the app is ready, deploy it to locally. Deploy it locally to port 3006. And feel free to test via CLI or browser, but don't include any automated test. I will just test manually. I will just test manually once the app is deployed. And then, just hit enter. And there you go. So basically, what I just added there is something that in a Manus workflow, that'll probably be part of the system prompt, or it'll be part of the sort of prompt that kicks it off. The problem when you're using Cline, it's a little different because Cline in of itself is an agent. So it doesn't really integrate into automated workflows naturally. You do have to kind of kick it off by putting something in there. Now you can see it's writing all the code. It's doing the UI design reference files. So we use reference files to track what we're doing and give it context and make sure that we keep the LLM focused on what it needs to be doing so that it doesn't go off on tangents or get confused or whatever it might be. You can see in my start prompt here, we can go over some of this stuff now. I'm talking about creating management folders and files, reference files for each feature and requirement. You can see that's what it's doing. So it's saying these are different things. We need an API integration, we need a price comparison, we need a UI design. It's planning all that out on its own, and it's going through and creating detailed sort of checklists and plan of how it's going to do that. And then it's going to follow that as it goes along through the process. So right now it's in the planning phase. You'll see if you look at a demo of Manus, it does something very similar. It creates these checklists and then it follows the checklist. Then you can see here I talk about creating the project management folder in the root directory, and this is so that it has a point of reference throughout the project as to what it's doing, and it can always go back. Then it's also going to create an index file that basically outlines or provides an index of what files exist, where they're located, and a little description of them. That way, anytime a new session starts, it can reference that index file and instantly know where things are. We have the start file. The start file is basically a file that when you start a session and you say, hey, start with a start file, it'll read it, it'll figure out what the project is about, how to contribute to the project, where things are located, it'll point it to the current phase. So we have a concept of phases here. You can see one of the instructions here is to create a project roadmap. So it creates an overall project roadmap. It breaks things down into phases, and then for each phase it creates a phase checklist, and that checklist is basically a detailed, we were looking at it, an example of that it's a detailed checklist of like do this, then this, then this, and this. use this tool, that tool, make it look like this, etc. It's very detailed, and the AI will go through, check those off as it goes along, and it has a checklist for each phase. So the start file, let's say you for some reason exited the session, or the context became too much. You start a new session. You say, hey, start with the start file. It'll go look at the start file. That'll direct it to the current phase. It'll look at the current phase. It'll look at the checklist and say, okay, this is where we are. The next thing I need to do is, whatever's the next thing on the list that's not checked off. It'll go and start working on that, and it'll have all the context that it needs to continue working on the project effectively. And then at the bottom of this file, say only the project manager can update the start file. That's so whenever the AI is working on something and it reads that file, or it reads any of these project management files, it doesn't think in its own head like, hey, you know what, I think I should change some of this stuff because I just had this idea, and it goes and changes your project management files. You don't want that. So there's certain little things like this that you only figure out once you've been manually working with AI to build applications, and you go through this process of trial and error, and you realize how AI works. And each model is a little bit different. I think the problem is a lot of people don't actually take the time to build apps with AI. They jump to things like Cursor or Manus, or whatever OpenAI is releasing with their $2,000 agent, their $20,000 agent. Or even the Claude Coder, which just came out recently. All these things are basically wrappers around the LLM. And at the end of the day, that's what anything is. Any agentic workflow is basically a wrapper around an LLM on the back end. Some things are more complex than others, so they may actually provide value. But for things like Manus or the coding agent from Claude, I don't think the hype is worth it, because you look at Cline, and this Cline is doing the same thing that Claude Code does. And this Cline has been out forever, and it has a UI. You're working in VS Code. And VS Code, you can add the MCP server. So now in VS Code, you can actually add MCP servers to integrate with other tools and applications, Shopify, Spotify, Discord, Google Calendar. I could just tell this thing, I could add this MCP server, and then I could just text in the box, hey, go check my email and see if there's any meetings you need to add to my Google Calendar. Or check my Google Calendar. I actually have something to do tomorrow. I got to cancel my meetings. So check my Google Calendar, and then if there's any meetings, email those people that I have to reschedule, and then reschedule that meeting. Like, that's the same thing that Manus claims to do. That's the same thing. You've got all these people selling hype that, hey, we've got this cool agent that can do all this stuff. It's the same thing. Just go on Cline, install whatever, MCP server you need to do whatever it is that you want to do, web search, all this stuff, and then just go in here and write your prompt, and it does the same thing that Manus does. We're actually doing something right now that's more complicated than what Manus was claiming, which is that we're building an actual application from start to finish, which, people are going around and getting hyped up about this, when in reality it's pretty basic. I think a lot of investors are falling for these sort of, I don't want to say traps or whatever, but they're falling. It's not really vaporware either, but it's a bunch of hype. I mean, you see that I can go and take this, I can create a UI using AI, I can build a website, I can put this in there, I can put in a basic workflow, manage some databases, and basically have it look like, oh, you just type some command in, and then next thing you know, an application pops out. Wow. And go raise a bunch of money. Well, guess what? That's exactly what Cursor did. Cursor, which I think just raised a bunch more money. If you don't know what Cursor is an online platform. It's an AI code editor. It's like, hey, look at this. I mean, it does the same thing, guys. Cline is open source. This is the same exact thing, guys. I'm telling you. And they just raised, I don't know, I think they just raised a ton of cash. Let me look at this. Cursor, latest fundraising. $10 billion valuation on its last thing. $10 billion for what I just showed you, which is absolutely free and anybody can do it. Let that sink in. Make that make sense. And I don't know why people use it either. You're paying to use Cursor. Just do what I'm doing right here. It's literally the same exact thing. And it's better because when you do it the way I'm doing it, you have way more control over what's going on. I can control whatever LLM I want to use. I can use whatever API I want to use. I'm not paying any fees on top. It's not going through a third party. This is all happening locally. So it's not happening on Cursor server or anything like that. I can add whatever MCP servers I want. If I want to build a custom MCP server and integrate it with my workflows, I can. I can create a custom MCP server and add it to Cline as well. And I can do all that stuff. You'll see here that it just asked me to do something. It asked me to approve running a command because that type of command can be dangerous. Malicious things can be injected in that way if you're not careful. So basically it just says, hey, like for any sensitive type of commands, let me ask the user if they want to continue. But it's not really adding a input, and really, you can automate that if you want. So it looks like it's open. It's ready, I'm sorry. There you go. So here's our cool application. It took all of, 5 minutes or less to build this. As you can see, did not have to do anything in terms of input. I didn't have any errors that I have to copy and paste it back into the LLM or the agent to troubleshoot things. It didn't ask me any questions. Let's see if it's working. So go to the arbitrage section, and you can see here, it has the price, it has the bid and the ask, which I didn't even ask it to do that. I didn't even ask for that. I didn't ask for volume either. But it did it anyways, which is cool. And then it shows me the difference and the percent difference. Is this live? Let's go ahead and check if these are the correct prices. 81,322, 326. Yep, so it's following the price there, and then we can just go to Coinbase. 81,321, 333. Let's see, 321, 332 right there. So you can see it is matching the price, and it's calculating the differences as it goes along, which is great. I also told it I may want to add additional features, and I want to sell this to investors, this idea, right? You can see right here, it actually inferred a lot about what I want to do. So it says no significant arbitrage opportunity. I didn't ask it to put a notification about that, right? But it's doing that for me. I also see that it put an explanation to what is cryptocurrency arbitrage, which it's pulling in that investor sale, selling to an investor aspect for me. Has an important disclaimer down here, right, which is great. It has different strategies for arbitrage, factors to consider. It's added all this stuff on its own, and it all works. This is a working application. I could go to an investor today and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to build this out, right? Real-time data, price comparison, arbitrage detection, futuristic interface, how it works, future potential, Coinbase, Gemini, Binance, KuCoin, right? It's added this cool thing. I mean, and you see how easy this was? People are doing the same thing, but with like AI platforms and applications. In 20 seconds, you could spin this up. I can go out and get an investor and say, hey, I'm building the new AI coding agent or research agent. OpenAI is trying to sell a research agent between $2,000 and $20,000 a month, okay? Guess what? Go to LangChain, open source, research assistant, shows you how to do it. You can build your own research assistant for free, open source, using whatever LLM you want, and OpenAI is trying to charge $20,000 so they can boost their investor funding or whatever they're trying to do. But it's a bunch of garbage. It's a bunch of nonsense. If you do some basic research, you'll find this out. Added a cool button down here that takes me back to this page. Oh, and you can see it gave it a name, Crypto Arb. I didn't even give it a name. I didn't name the product. It named it itself. The buttons work. It's got this futuristic vibe, as you can see, which is what I asked for. So let's just recap here. what did I do? I said I want to build an app. I want it to look futuristic. I want to use it to sell to investors, and I wanted to have, a certain functionality to calculate arbitrage. And it built that in 5 minutes, one shot. Just gave it a single prompt, went all the way through the process, didn't ask any questions, didn't have to do any troubleshooting. I actually have something I'm working on that actually matters, which I'm not going to sell or raise investors. That's my personal competitive advantage, let's say. This is limited to how complex things can get, the same way Manus is, and the same way that any of these online platforms like Cursor work. They're all limited. You try to do something really complicated, like a multi-tier platform with tons of databases, custom APIs in the back end, and all that kind of stuff, and integrating with other tools, and especially if it has complex workflows, that it won't be able to do in one shot. It will have errors, it will have issues, it will need inputs, and so you need a much more robust, complex system. You need to break out, you need to have like a developer agent that has sub-agents that do like specific types of things. You need to have an implementation agent, a strategic agent, different types of agents that do different things. I can actually show you an example of this is the code that it wrote here. But I could show you an example of what those kind of look like in one of my other. So this is like an agentic workflow that you can define, and then there's like a strategic agent, which is like a definition for strategic agent, support agent, implementation agent, and you can use these through Cline as well. You can just define them, just define these agents in your text files, and then when you start the Cline session, you'll just say, hey, you are a implementation agent. Go to the implementation agent start file, and then it'll go to the file and then figure out what it needs to do. And I've integrated my agents with ClickUp, so I can see all my tasking that the agents are working on. I can see that here. And when it goes to human in the loop review, I get a notification on my phone, and I just review it, and then I put it in done, and it continues the workflow. And I use LangChain, so it's all automated. I don't have any involvement in what it's doing. It builds on its own, basically, and it gets good results. The other thing is, you'll notice like people were hyping up Manus because it went into like a browser and clicked around and did stuff. This has been around for a long time. This is a native capability of Cloud 3.5. Look at this. I asked it earlier, hey, go check the weather. I said, can you check the weather in the browser? So it checked the weather in the browser. It opened a browser, checked the weather, and it knew where I live in Gaithersburg. It figured that part out. I didn't have to tell it anything. I just said check the weather. It went, checked the weather, told me it's 64 degrees. There's a story, intense storm coming soon. It's asking me, it's saying there's different options I can look at, but it just said, hey, the weather's 64. There's an alert. So, this is like a quick sort of, kind of like a tutorial on how to do this yourself, but more of an expose on like the reality of what is the actual importance of Manus. It's not important at all. And neither is the OpenAI research agents, because you can literally go build your own. And actually there's multiple open source research agent frameworks. And if you go look at other things like Microsoft has this agent auto build, automatically builds multi-agent systems. So it just automatically does that. There's AutoGen, which is a similar thing. I think it's like the same thing as part of it. There's a bunch of open source stuff that you can just go find and does the same thing that people are hyping up and getting millions of dollars of investment. It's crazy. But let me show you one last thing. So now I've closed that session. I'm going to start a completely new session, and all I'm going to tell it is you are working on the demo. Start with the start. I'll just copy the path. I'll just tell it to start with. This would be like, let's say it built you your app and you want to go back and you want to add something. So in our case, I'm showing you that it's not like a one-shot thing. You can actually continue working on this stuff. So I could just say, you are working on the demo project, add Ethereum. I'm not even going to tell it like any context. I'm just going to say add Ethereum. I'm not going to say add auto arbitrage or whatever. I'm not going to tell it anything. I'm just going to say add Ethereum, literally. Add Ethereum. And then I'm going to say start with, and I'm just going to give it to the path, give it the path to the file and let that go, and then watch what happens. So right now you can see we only have Coinbase, Gemini for Bitcoin price comparison. Auto refresh every 30 seconds. Oh, I didn't even know that. I can pick 10 seconds and it's going to refresh automatically every 10 seconds. Look how much it built into that I didn't even think about. I didn't even think about adding auto refresh. I didn't think about adding a button to refresh now. I didn't think about adding the ability to add the time frames. I didn't ask it for an indicator, but it inferred all that automatically. So you can see here, it's going through, it's editing the existing files. What it's done is, it said, first I'll read this file, so it read the start file, then it checked the current phase, then it checked the project roadmap, so now it's got the context, what are we doing, and where are we in that process. So then it says, it figured out that it's a Bitcoin price comparison app, and it's adding Ethereum functionality, so it was able to figure that out, right? So now it's saying it understands how the API service is implemented, how the price comparison works. Now the project structure it understands, and it starts editing and updating these files, and it's going to go ahead and do its thing. So if investors start investing in vaporware or things that don't really have a moat that can be easily replicated, right? Then they get burned, and then the industry gets a bad name, and then nobody wants to invest in AI stuff anymore because they think it's all just it's like crypto, right? It's a bunch of crap. And then people like me or real developers won't be able to get funding for projects that actually matter and that actually provide value. Okay, so you can see here, I asked it to add Ethereum, so it went ahead. I didn't add any additional prompts. I didn't have any troubleshooting or anything. It did it on its own. And you can see here, now we have an Ethereum button. So it figured out, hey, how am I going to add Ethereum? Well, I add it like this. I can go in and say, hey, instead of doing it like this, I want to drop down, and I can pick from the drop down. That way I can have like 40 different currencies and there's not like 40 different buttons, right? But right now, what it did makes sense. And you can see, yep, it's comparing the price. I see the difference. I can refresh now. It works. I can change it to 10 seconds. I can change it to 1 minute, and it works just fine. So that's great. So there you go. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments or whatever. I'm not really sure where I'm going to post this video yet. It might be Twitter. It might be, well, no, it'll be YouTube. I might make a Twitter post, and you can respond to the Twitter post. I haven't used Twitter in years, but I felt like now is a good time, and this is a good subject to kind of start with. So if you liked this video, share it, and if you have any questions, ask ChatGPT, and I'll see you when I see you.